He's always listening.
Yeah. Look at that. All right. I would like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 meeting of the Finance Committee of CCWD. Would you all please rise and join me in the pledge? We begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have anyone online that would wish to make a public comment?
No online public comment.
No one online. Either one of the Kellys want to make a public comment? No. Okay, let's proceed then. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting on May 19th.
Move.
Okay, I second that. Moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Okay, under new business 3A, report on the monthly financial reports for June 2026. Kelly Z, would you enlighten us?
I would be happy to, sir. Today, we're presenting the budget status report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. This report represents a preliminary year-end financial results. This report is unaudited, and we anticipate that final balances will change as we complete the year-end closing entries and the annual audit. Overall,
if I could interrupt you for 1 second, just as I was walking in, I heard you say something that certain bills from June are still being paid. So that's why there will be minor changes.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to clarify
Do you have
that.
any idea when you think you're going to probably close up the books? In August, or what do you guys usually shoot for?
Last week, first week in August-ish. And there's a large number of outstanding projects that are ongoing. So we want to make sure we capture as much of that in the correct fiscal year as we can. The auditors like it when we do it that way. All righty. So overall, the district finished the fiscal year in a strong financial position. We're currently at approximately $36.8 million in revenue, and total expenses were approximately $36.4 million. Total operating revenues, so not all revenues, but just the operating, are at 104.1% of budget, which reflects continued strength in our core utility operations. The key contributors included the water and sewer sales. Those exceeded our budget. Account establishment fees were higher than anticipated due to increased development activity. Water meter installations exceeded expectations, and reimbursable expenses remained strong due to contractor reimbursements. Total expenditures ended the year at 92.4% of budget, indicating that departments generally maintained good budgetary control throughout the fiscal year. Salaries and benefits finished at approximately 95% of budget. A few individual accounts exceeded budgets. Those included overtime, CalPERS UAL payment timing, and retirement health savings contributions. However, these were largely offset by savings in other salary and benefit categories. Services and supplies finished currently at 89.3% of budget, despite several individual accounts exceeding budget, and those included emergency paving repairs, laboratory services, pump and equipment repairs, state required sampling, and increased utility and disposal costs. Many of these items resulted from emergency repairs or projects that will be reimbursed. Capital outlay is at 76% of budget, and my understanding is there are some invoices that are still coming in for those capital outlay, so we'll hopefully get closer to 100% expended. Debt service, we met all of our scheduled debt service obligations during the fiscal year. We discussed there was one interest account that appears over budget, but that is a correction that will be made as we close the year out.
Quick question.
Of course, sir.
We have, and on all of our schedules, we've got a bad debt expense on there. Is that what we're sending on to tier? Or are we writing that off?
Gonna have to ask Kylie for help on that one. Sorry, Kylie.
Bad debt expense is in the admin services department budget, and it's a budget of uncollected accounts that are inactive that we then send to our collections agency, not to Teeter. Teeter is a liability that we have, and when we receive the apportionments from the county auditor, then it offsets the liability and we mark it as a revenue.
And the bad debt, you're right, that's just lost, that's write off.
Yes, yes.
Then you're saying that's coming from admin?
Yeah, Department 59.
Why is that not tied over back to the Teeter since it's a portion of the bill for admin?
It's Teeter is only for active accounts where the property owner still owns the parcel. That way we can then
This is true.
tie it.
This is what we were trying to deal with the other day.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Kylie. Let's see. So year-end closing items, we've got recording transfers between funds, reclassifying grant revenues, correcting coding and timing entries identified during our review, and finalizing the audit adjustments. I think we've done a really good job this year moving forward into the budget for 26, 27. Recognizing there are areas where we may run a little bit short, such as retiree health costs. We've done a really good job of updating the utility and technology budgets, refining maintenance and repair accounts. And so I'm optimistic that moving forward, we're going to have, really good tight numbers for those items.
We had a pretty
Yeah.
big increase. It's not on the schedule you're talking about, but in for engineering and overtime, was it 50 some odd $1,000?
Yeah.
Is that something we're remedying?
My understanding is that that was tied to the A to B project
A lot
pipeline.
of that is construction inspector time, and it fluctuates year over year depending on the construction projects that we have underway. And it could be some of the engineers' time as well. But there were a lot of long days on that A to B project where our inspectors and engineers were out there.
Like to keep, if it's ebbing and flowing, that's great. If it's consistent, that means we're short of body.
It's definitely one of the high overtime
Right? I get it.
areas.
Project,
Yeah.
just keep that in mind.
Yep, absolutely.
It's imperative that the inspectors are there to confirm the work is being done and sign off on it. So
My experience when in our overtimes, it's not there yet, but if it grew, it's almost FTE, we should think about our
Right.
staffing.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
it's seasonal, that's different.
we can't get one back.
Can't get one back.
One back. Yeah, he's
We
gone.
want one back.
You lose one.
Juan is
Yeah.
gone. Don't worry about it. We had an little ice cream party. So
When you're a good guy, you're always welcome home.
he's a good guy.
It's okay
Yeah,
because we had ice cream. Okay.
That's on good terms.
All righty. That's all I have on that item. Any questions I can answer for you?
I think we need to work on slurry line sales. It's a dismal amount of money for such a fabulous asset.
Subject for another time, but we are working on that actually. We'll give you an update at some point.
And we're significantly under budget on the supervisor's expenses, and I'm willing to help on that.
Ellie, a quick question. We have when we get down to, are we talking about that whole item now? We're skipping
Of
ahead.
course. Yes,
On
sir.
the cash fund balance report, when we get down, can you, every time I look at Fund 500 and it's negative, yet Fund 500 is also our operating 30 and 90-day reserves and all of our money's going through there. How is it that it's always negative? Can you explain the loan system so that I'm more educated on how that works out.
Or my understanding is it's sort of an informal loan because all of the cash is pooled in one account. So the account overall is in the positive. It's just that particular section of the fund that is running in the negative, and we're actually coming out of it. We were projecting to be at around, I think, negative 700,000 at this time right now, and I think we're at a negative 500. There's times in the year where we are in the positive, but those are short-lived periods that get overrun by paying all of the bills. So one of my goals is to look at that more closely and decide, do we need each year until we get into the positive full time? Do we need to do a formal borrowing agreement between water and sewer or one of the sewer accounts just to make sure that it,
Because 500's got so many different funds commingled in there that it's hard for me to see how if we're at negative $500,000, how are we paying our bills? What account are we tagging those to?
all the funds are pooled together. So that's why we're showing you on paper that it's a negative, but really the pooled funds, it's in the positive. So
We've got to figure this thing out.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, one of my top priorities.
It's a lot of faith.
Absolutely.
So it still doesn't make any sense when we're paying bills out of 500 and it says negative account.
Fortunately, we have more money in the bank, so
Yeah, we got
it's
lots of money in the bank.
it's an illusion.
It is, but we need to get some
Yes.
clarity.
Yeah, I
Agreed.
think it's just because that's how we track what the balance of what that fund is, but in the actual, bank account that they're in, it's commingled with funds that are positive. So we can still write checks out of that account,
Right.
but we're tracking the progress of that negative balance.
I just think we have to find some way to make it.
And correct me if
Simpler
I'm
for
wrong about
people.
any of that, Kylie, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I believe you guys, but it's a magic happening back there. Our job is to interface public,
Definitely.
so we have to explain magic.
All righty. Any other questions?
Any other questions, Jack?
Bug Kelly the last 24 hours. Just been very patient with me.
Then if that concludes 3A, can we proceed to 3B?
Okay. This is a discussion and direction regarding proposed revisions to the Financial Management Policy 5.0 Reserve Policies. Presenting this item to solicit feedback and direction on the overall framework before we do the work to prepare a revised policy for board consideration. The reserve policies were last substantially updated in 2023. Since that time, we've completed another budget cycle. We've reviewed our long-term financial forecasts and evaluated our existing reserve balances. And of course, we've performed additional cash flow analysis. That work identified several opportunities to approve, clarify, and better align the reserve structure with the current governmental finance best practices. The proposed revisions are intended to better define the purpose of each reserve, distinguish between legally restricted reserves and board designated reserves, align reserve funding decisions with annual budget and long-range financial planning, clarify when reserves may be used and the level of board authorization required, improve annual reporting and transparency, and simplify the reserve structures where appropriate. My plan is to go through each reserve, and I would love this to be an iterative process where we talk about your thoughts and feelings on each item, and we can come to a place where we have a little bit of direction moving forward. So
Jump right after.
absolutely.
Under the water fund, for example, we were just talking about Fund 400 and 300 and 500. In the water fund, we're able to break out those reserve funds, those restricted funds, the West Point expansion, Abbott's Pass, 344, 354. I think that whatever we decide today, we need to break. It might be a little bit difficult on the operating reserve, but certainly when we get to whatever reserves we decide to keep and how we keep it, I'd like to have them to have their own number so we could track the comings and goings.
Okay.
See, that way we'll know when we've reached our goal and we can know what's extra and put that extra to work somewhere else,
I like
especially if it's might be restricted, may not be unrestricted, but I like the fact that we could break out each of those 344, 354. And I could see on the sheet, okay, there's $1 million there for replacement. So I think if we do that, that would be a good step.
I think that's an excellent idea. Of course. All righty, so heading into operating reserve 6.01, we are proposing to add clarifying language that this reserve provides working capital to address timing differences, and that the reserve level will be established during the annual budget process. So that would be a little bit different than saying it's going to be a 1 month of expenses. I mean, we could use that as a framework to determine what the amount should be if that's what the board chooses, or we can have this conversation each year where we determine what you want it to be. So I see benefits
Use
in,
this fund as our cash flow. This is what we're writing checks out of.
correct?
That, 1 month may not be adequate for that. I wouldn't
Right.
want. That's our really working capital. Am I describing that correctly?
Yes, you are.
When we do that, we should definitely take a look. I think 1 month is a good thing, but I'd be surprised that that could get you tight at the end of a month without having to shift money around.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean,
Recommending any day or?
No, I wouldn't. I would say maybe. See, we're saying here the operating reserves, to be current is roughly 2.2 million. That's about what our burn rate is,
yes.
or all funds 300. I don't know, maybe 45 days, maybe 60.
How are we calculating 30 days? Because our expenditures are not flat over the course of a year.
Sure.
They fluctuate. 1 30-day period might be completely different than the next.
And
So
that's
is it really just 1/12 of the total budget?
what we've presented on this is 1/12 of the operating costs.
So I think the question would be, do you want it to be a greater percentage of the total budget rather than the days to me are,
I mean, if we do what we're proposing here and we break out these funds into different things, right now it's easy to do because it's all pooled, right?
Mhm.
So if you're in or out, it just all levels out. If we break those down and we don't have enough cash in that account, we'll have to go to those reserve accounts and actually pull the money into the cash flow. And that could be, that would be more transparent, but it would make a greater issue on your month-to-month cash flow, which is why if we break them out and set those minimums, we can put more into the operating cash that you don't have to go to the big commingled pool of money to make a big month or a small month. So I'd like to have them pull out because I'd like to keep track of these reserve accounts.
So I guess the question is, how much do you want to see? Do we want to make that decision on an annual basis as part of the budget? Do we want to write it into the policy where we say 45, 60, 30 days, or a percentage of the budget? These are the things that we're trying to kind of fine tune. I can see it both ways. I mean, it's simpler to say 1 month or 2 months. It's a lot of it's going to depend on how, what our financial standing is at the time we're doing budget. This is right now what we've been doing is they haven't been, my understanding is prior periods, we haven't been fully funding the reserve. They just say, oh, that's the policy and here's the balance, but we're not taking any steps to moving toward actually fully funding some of these. So I don't see a way in either scenario, whether we pick a number of days or a percentage, that we're going to be able to achieve those goals.
This 2 million is roughly 5% of our annual budget going into cash flows.
Right.
And so if
Approximately, yes.
If we had 10%, you'd have doubled that. It'd be 4 million, which would be just about 60 days. And that should give you enough cash flow to operate this machine. Is that best guess?
Seems like a good estimate.
Back of the envelope here.
Mhm.
Looking at you guys.
Right, really fast.
Maybe we say, since that's going to be the main operating, maybe rather than days, we just say 10% of the budget, which would be about $4 million. 100,000.
That makes more sense to me. I mean, we are effectively doing a percentage anyways. The number of days is not
Yeah.
an actual unit of measurement.
Right. But if we did it off the whole thing, you need, if I'm gonna make you guys segregate the money,
Mhm.
you need enough cash to operate this thing.
I will take that and we will review it and see if, how feasible that will be. And I'll work on a spreadsheet and not the back of the envelope, if that's okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that direction. That'll be helpful.
Makes sense.
Yes, no, it
Throwing
absolutely does. So, we're running into a similar thing with the 90-day. However, so I'm going to move on to the next one if you don't have any other comments on operating.
Which one of these reserve accounts is being referred to when I hear the discussion about when we're out talking to financial institutions and they're looking at our reserve status to give us an interest rate, a favorable interest rate as opposed to a non-favorable interest rate? Are they looking only at the 90-day emergency operating reserve, or are they overall?
Are you referring to the debt service coverage
Yeah, sure.
ratio?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what account it's in is my understanding. It's the overall ratio that matters. I don't think they're necessarily concerned about how we parse it. They're looking at revenue to debt service.
Okay. Well,
I think as part of a credit review, they might look more closely at reserve policies, but the debt service coverage ratio is just a ratio.
okay, looking at the other side of the coin, then the what is a practical, realistic, and have we ever been in the 80 plus years that the agency that has been in existence, have we ever had an emergency that required that we dip into reserves for 90 days? Is that like we don't have a possibility of a dam failure? I mean, I'm just throwing out ideas, that's all. You know?
Don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we've had to utilize the emergency reserve in the past.
Okay. All right, well, proceed with your next comments.
For the 90-day emergency operating reserve, we're recommending retaining this reserve while expanding its purpose to clearly identify the types of emergencies it's intended to address, including natural disasters, infrastructure failures, significant revenue disruptions, and other unforeseen events. We would also like to strengthen this reserve by transferring the remaining balances from both the rate stabilization reserve and the special projects reserve into the emergency operating reserve. This consolidation will place additional resources into what we feel is the most important reserve that we have, which is the 90-day emergency reserve.
That's all, see, that's fund
308.
308. So 308 is a restricted funds. Just use water stuff.
308 for water, 508 for sewer, yes. And so it's, it matches up pretty well because the 90-day emergency operating reserve exists in the 308 fund. It's just about reapportioning those dollars to fall under that 90-day emergency reserve. So in the attachment that I gave you, it shows what the balance would look like if we did move those funds over. And the way we're currently calculating 90 days, that would still leave us $1 million short in that fund for the reserves, even if we added those additional two. So, but we're getting closer.
We're getting close. So, and are we going to look at the language around how to use that? Because I want to make sure that the GM's got lots of flexibility, but also some oversight.
Yes. Making a note.
Just but verify.
Of course. Perfect. Okay.
Michael, I made a note on this rate stabilization fund. And it doesn't Prop 218 sort of trump any considerations of trying to have a rate stabilization fund. We got a according to the way I interpret Prop 218, you have to have enough revenue to meet your expenses. So,
So 218 is not necessarily going to restrict that. It depends on the source of the funds. And so whether if the source of that reserve fund, if those are unrestricted funds and we have the flexibility to use that to, whether it's, subsidized rates or offset a potential rate increase or however we want to use those funds there, I don't think 218 would have anything to say about that. But Prop 218 is a ceiling, not a floor. It says that we can't charge more than the cost of the proportionate cost of service. We can charge less and we can use other unrestricted sources of funds to pay for those like we do with hydropower revenue or property tax revenue. But we can't charge more than the cost of service.
ceilings so that there's nothing in the language that would communicate that you better put your rates at a point that where you are covering expenses?
No, I mean, our rates would be much higher if that were the case, and then everything else would be above the cost of service. So the property tax revenue, all that other revenue would be above the cost of service if rates fully covered the cost of service. So there's no requirement that we do that, and we wouldn't want to do that. We want to use other sources of funds as much as we can to take pressure off of rates. But 218 just says that we can't charge more than the cost of service.
Question. On the special projects reserve, we fund that with property taxes. When we get a dollar of property tax, how do we apportion that dollar? I know obviously a certain portion of it goes to property, goes to this fund, a certain part goes to probably some overhead, water. So when we've got $1, how do we break it down for property tax?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if we've ever fully broken that down.
How much do we get in property tax?
That
About
would
$500,000,
Oh, no,
Almost
4 million.
4 million? I'd be curious for every dollar,
Yeah.
how we break that down. I know that county land, we do stuff like that. I think it's very demonstrative to
I think we could
to
pull
our
that
community
together.
who
Yeah.
who aren't customers.
And one thought I had, is I think Kelly's did a great job on these recommendations. But just in the spirit of discussion here, those are, because that's unrestricted. One thought I had was you actually, instead of putting all of that into the 90-day reserve, use that special project fund to bolster the FERC relicensing reserve. And so we put some into the 90-day reserve. We put some because that really is a countywide benefit project, which I think is appropriate for property tax revenue, and bolster that FERC reserve. Be careful how I butcher my 4-letter F words. The FERC reserve with the special property tax.
This is our most valuable money. It's the best color money that we have, most flexibility, I should say, next to the hydro. And, I agree. I'd like to see how we break it out. Maybe you guys can provide that. And then, we're going to have these, I expect that we'll have these buckets filled here pretty quick. They'll increase every year, obviously, with inflation. But it'd be great to see where those tax dollars go, because we got a whole county to vouch for.
Right.
Yep, we'll work that up. So then going back to the 90-day, Michael, with your point about the FERC and water rights fund, do we want to make a decision on how that split would look?
And you get
On how this.
FERC is.
So if you're saying that we don't want to take all of the, which, I'm sorry, you said rate stabilization, take some of that?
No,
special
so
project.
I think your recommendation was rates that could basically incorporate rate stabilization and the special project fund into the 90-day reserve. My thought was yes to the rate stabilization fund, as long as we're going to have to make sure we fully vet that and make sure it's not earmarked for other purposes. And then for the special property tax balance, though, we put that in the water resources.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Licensing reserve.
Once we get that 90-day bucket full, I don't want to put more money in there.
Right.
So
And I don't think, we're not currently doing that.
we're going to get close.
Just how we got
We're going to get that thing
negative.
filled up probably this year. Presume possibly, in which case we need to look at what we're doing with those dollars next year.
Okay. Special
Build that
project.
into our budget discussion.
Yes. Okay, so special projects to the water rights and FERC. Okay. Moving on to asset replacement reserve 6.03. We're just recommending some updated language. The reserve would continue to serve as the funding source for rehabilitation and replacement of existing infrastructure, but the policy could reference current asset management practices and capital improvement program rather than historical references. There's a lot of information in that item that is not really current and relevant. So just reworking the language in that policy.
Capital R&R, we're not making payments on the loans out of that fund, right?
No.
So that's truly money set aside for water.
Correct.
It's getting up there too. It's good.
All righty, debt service reserve. This revision simply updates the policy language so reserve requirements are tied directly to bond covenants, loan agreements, and other financing documents. It will keep the policy consistent with current debt management practices. No huge changes. I have some thoughts on some language updates for that one. 6.5, so that would be rate stabilization. So we spoke about eliminating that reserve. Water rights and FERC relicensing 6.06. That one's going to need a little bit more work if we're going to incorporate the FERC relicensing effort into that policy. I guess my question is, do we completely eliminate that policy and create a brand new one? Or do you propose we keep that one in place and just revise the language? It doesn't.
I think revise is
Okay.
probably fine. I think what she's talking about is, we've come to refer to it as the Water Resources and FERC Relicensing Fund, but I don't know that that was ever a formal policy change from the board. That it is actually still just the Water Resources Reserve. Is that right?
Water, love that. Yeah, water rights reserve, water rights reserve.
I think water resources reserve. Because someday we're going to be done with FERC. And this will still be on the books.
Someday.
And then if we take out a loan, we could
Well,
against that.
yeah. I think maybe then the only change we need to make, and we can look at the language, to make sure we clarify the use of it. But water resources does include, the, FERC activities.
Mhm.
I think
Makes
that
sense.
we would need to change though, because I think it's currently water rights.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to limit it to just water rights,
Yeah.
but water resources.
I think the water resources idea. Agree. I think that's a good change. All right.
Now we will know when we reach the goal line. Goal posts tend to move. So
I think we've got a pretty good goalpost on the FERC relicensing piece.
there's
So
no cap on that. one.
yeah, we kind of have a drop dead on that. So yeah.
But that'll allow us to track, especially if we have to take on debt to get this done.
Right. And we've also, in that vein, we've also in the budget, carved out that piece for FERC relicensing. So those
Right.
transactions are going to be very apparent.
Right.
And when we need to take money from this fund, it'll be because, yeah, absolutely. I'm all about connecting the dots. All right. CIP cash flow reserve 6.07. We want to retain this reserve, maybe changing how the target balance is determined, rather than maintaining the fixed $2 million target. We could evaluate that annually based on what the CIP budget, what the engineering group brings to us for their CIP budget.
So I did notice on this that we have water and sewer combined.
Yes, in the handout that I gave you, I did keep them combined. I'm still trying to figure out, is it 2 million for both? Is it split the 70-30%, splits that we do? It doesn't really speak to this in the policy. So I'm still fleshing that out a little bit. I think we need to have clear percentages for each, how we're going to treat that. So maybe in the policy, we cite water is this much, this percentage, and sewer is this percentage.
I would definitely want to do that so we could track it. And that way, when we have loans moving back and forth for cash flow purposes, we could keep track of who owes what to whom.
Yep.
And, and I really questioned, it would seem like for the amount of construction we're doing, I understand having $2 million to keep cash flow going, especially since some of these are federal reimbursements. But I just want to make sure that we've got, enough and not too much. I want everybody just feeling comfortable because there's an extra $1 million in the bank covering their back. I want to use every nickel working.
Agreed. All righty, moving on to elimination of special projects reserves. So as we discussed, we'll reallocate those dollars to the newly created water resources reserve. If everyone's okay with that.
When was that?
That was 6.08, the special projects reserve.
That's property tax, so that would go well.
And we will be looking at that. I believe those are all the ones that we can actually address in this change. I did not make any recommendations for our various expansion funds. I think that language in that policy can be updated as well. I just didn't take that on in this discussion here today, I don't think.
Yeah, and those we have less flexibility on.
Right.
So we could look at language clarification, but we can't move that money.
Yeah, untouchable.
Those monies, those expansion funds, for example, we've got, Ginny Land and other projects, if it's passed, was all these funds that are put together. Some of them are getting pretty significant sums in there. What are we going to use that money for versus what we've taken out loans for under the CIP? And how are those funds different?
So my understanding is those funds can only be used in the area where the funds were collected for the
Yeah, so
purpose
they're-
of those facilities.
They're dedicated to the specific service area. And so when we break out our CIP and we look at all the different sources of funds that we have, we're allocating those funds to projects over the next few years to make sure that we're using those funds in addition to the loan proceeds or other sources of funds that we have.
We are working those into capital projects.
We're spending it,
And I just don't want some sitting on the books.
Yeah, no, and the purpose of that money is to go into the infrastructure. So
Right.
that's what we
I
want to
was
use it
I was
for.
thinking of some of the projects over in Russ's district. We're doing big stuff. I want to make sure we're spending the money that those people invested.
Yeah,
in.
and I think that one currently has some, both water and sewer, some of the larger balances on the expansion fund side, but we have a lot of projects coming up where we're going to allocate those funds.
They get too big.
Right.
So I think I have enough to keep moving forward with the next step, which would be actually drafting up some policies which reflect this input that you've provided today. Is there anything else I can
You'll
answer?
do the fun numbers because I'm not smart enough to.
Of course, absolutely, always.
Kelly, will those modifications you're going to make come back here before we go?
I
to the
think that
board?
would be appropriate unless my boss tells me otherwise. My plan was to bring this back to the finance committee. You guys can read and
Yeah, I think we'll bring a
Comment.
final plan back before we.
And
do
then
Take
anything.
it to the board.
get your blessing to the board after that.
Yeah, and this would be a good cornerstone for our budget discussions, which start shortly after.
Absolutely.
On
Michael, don't we have an opportunity on the 22nd to, at the barbecue to finalize all the negotiations on the first relicensing?
I heard.
Sure. If you could go ahead and take care of that for us, Russ, that'd be great.
An opportunity. It might
Is there a barbecue?
save some bucks. But I just have a question on the, this is going a way back machine here, back to the front page on combined hydro detail. We have on line 28, we have power sales North Fork, and 29 is power sales New Hogan. Are those actually based upon kilowatts produced or?
New Hogan is based on actual production. It's a share of actual production. Okay. It's different. They're different structures for each of those agreements.
But I'm just maybe wishful thinking and totally premature, but I could see that if, we're getting the funds from the North Fork based on a contract that was executed 40 years ago, if we do our due diligence, increasing that number significantly would make all of our numbers look a lot more comfortable, and we might actually be able to reduce rates occasionally. There's a deadly silence here.
Sorry, I'm still 500 in negative balance. It's going to cause me a tick here in a minute.
I have, I think reasonable expectations that could happen.
We'll get it all straightened out.
It may not go down, but maybe they don't have to go up as fast. There's at least three customers in the room here.
Mhm.
All right, we're halfway through. Are we ready for the next one?
Yes,
Okay, so you'll bring that back to us in August in
Absolutely.
a clean format and we'll pass it on.
Yes, sir.
I have more questions about the expansion reserves, but those aren't for this meeting.
Next item is an after-action report regarding the duplicate billing incident that occurred back in May. We were going to bring you that item last month, but we were delayed. So here's the information. We want to report on this to summarize what occurred, the impact to our customers, and the actions that staff took in the aftermath of this incident. On May 27th, staff became aware that a duplicate utility bill had been generated for portions of our Valley Springs, Copperopolis, Wallace, and West Point service areas. As a result, some customers received duplicate bill notifications, and unfortunately, a limited number of autopay customers were at risk for duplicate payment processing. Once we identified the issue, we immediately began assessing the scope of the incident and worked directly with Tyler Technologies to determine the cause and develop a corrective action plan after this event. Protecting our customers was our highest priority, and staff reviewed affected accounts, notified impacted auto pay customers, posted information on our website and phone system. Thanks to Kelly G, who did an amazing job getting the word out to everyone. We updated the website, we updated the phone system, we responded to many customer inquiries and coordinated the refunds and reversals where duplicate payments occurred. Tyler Technologies did conduct an investigation, and we found out that the incident was caused by a software process that allowed the bill calculation function to be initiated a second time before the first initiation completed. So apparently our software stalled and staff went ahead and reinitiated the process. And when that happened, it created double bills for those accounts that had already been processed. Essentially, we reissued bills again. So that's why it didn't impact everyone, because not the entire billing cycle had been completed. So only portion reinitiated it, causing those double bills to happen on those accounts. And my sincere apologies to everyone who that impacted. It was an unfortunate occurrence. Tyler acknowledged the issue and advised that they are implementing safeguards so that this cannot happen again. And since I wrote this report a couple months ago, they have initiated those safeguards. So we are safe from this happening again in this manner. While the incident originated within the software platform, it highlighted opportunities for the district to strengthen our internal procedures. We are developing a formal incident response framework that will establish clear escalation procedures, customer communication protocols, vendor coordination requirements, and recovery process for future billing or technology-related incidents. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of all of our customer service staff, finance, information technology. They all work diligently to respond to the customer's concerns, processing corrections. I think poor Kylie just got through the last of her corrections on this effort, and ensuring that they were, just very cognizant of what our customers were going through. And I think it was I could hear it in the voices of our customer service staff when they were talking to these upset customers, showing a lot of compassion and trying to be as helpful as they could. So it was very nice to see that. Even poor Monica was impacted. The week before she got here, she got double billed and double charged, and she came here anyway. So that speaks volumes. I don't know what does. I just wanted to say that our, staff acted quickly and did the best that they could under the circumstances. And I think that this was an opportunity, a learning opportunity for all of us to work to improve the system and make sure that we're, dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that because this is a really unfortunate incident, and the customers that were affected were understandably frustrated. We never want something like this to happen, but our staff were incredible. I mean, the way that they proactively handled it, they were reaching out to people who, before they hit their credit cards, and taking their own initiative to be proactive to try to mitigate the impact as much as possible. So as much as you don't want things like this to ever happen, you also learn a lot about your team when things like this do happen. And I think our staff handled it as well as it could possibly have been handled. So really appreciate the work from everybody that was involved.
Questions? Sorry.
In your discussions with Tyler, did they reveal any information about whether this had happened to anybody else before?
I would have to check with Dylan, but I got the sense that it had not happened previously with any other agencies. I think they seemed pretty flummoxed by it. So
Yeah, it took them a while to even figure out what had happened also. So I'd be surprised if it was something they had encountered before.
agreed.
I was happy to hear that you guys had communicated with Tyler and they're getting a better communication system, since I understand that was one of the challenges. But I do want to commend the staff. A lot of people would wait for this to be a mess and then just deal with the flames when they came. And you jumped in front, owned it, fixed it, said this, I'm sorry's, and got this done. So it got put behind us. So it could have been just a dumpster fire, just was not. And I really commend your staff. I know you guys, on weekends. Thank you, Monica, for showing up after we went through this. But so I really do commend you, and I'm glad we've worked it out with Tyler. We're all loyal to him, but boy, I tell you, sometimes as a board member, it doesn't seem great, but it's what we got.
Yep.
So we'll make it work.
We're getting better every day.
Okay, well, this is the first time that we've had the explanation. I just wonder if the our Kelly G, are you gonna put out some updated information with Work Your Magic on explaining to our customers how it happened and what was done?
I think we can definitely do something. Yes.
Maybe it's
One of those ones where it might be better to let it lie at this point. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. If people are still
I think
asking for an explanation, we could do that.
And I think we've been when we've had customers call, we've been, really handling it one-on-one. I don't know, because it didn't affect all of our customers. If you want to start, doing those explanations.
Attitude of staff, making those phone calls, that makes the difference. We built up and got defensive. We need Kelly to broadcast it, but it may have been localized, may have tamped it down. I haven't heard anything else.
Okay.
I don't know. You had more people in your district.
His whole district had it. So
Had a few.
I didn't get it because I moved. Okay, do we have any comments online about that? I've been neglectful on asking that question.
There are no online comments.
Okay,
Kelly, we've got an operation plan now to pull off the shelf. We've got the
we're
experience.
working on it. We're working on it. It's been, it was budget time, and then now we're working on the next item, which is the billing transition. So I'll be on it. It's on our list to do. We're prioritizing top items.
I'm chomping at the bit to get the budget, so.
I know you are. Yes. So I'm ready to move on to the next item if
yes.
everybody's ready. So item 3D. So this is an update on the monthly billing transition project that we're working on. It's an informational item and we're not requesting any action today. Our goal is just to keep the committee informed on the progress we've made since receiving board direction and to discuss the work that remains before implementation of the monthly billing. As the committee will recall, the board directed staff to continue development of the preferred monthly billing option following our presentation in June. The monthly billing model we are implementing will bill fixed monthly charges every month while continuing to bill water consumption every other month. This approach will give customers more predictable monthly billing while avoiding the operational challenges associated with moving to monthly meter reading. We believe that this transition will improve customer service, provide more consistent revenue collection throughout the year, and make budgeting easier for our customers, which is a top priority for us. It will also allow us to improve the customer experience while minimizing impacts on our field staff. Since receiving board direction, staff has been actively working with Tyler and our internal departments to build a detailed implementation plan. Rather than focusing solely on software changes, we've approached this as a district-wide business process improvement, including customer service, finance, information technologies, operations, and external relations. We've completed or are currently working on several important tasks. Project planning, we've developed a detailed implementation schedule that identifies responsibilities, milestones, and the sequence of activities necessary for a successful rollout. We've begun working with Tyler Technologies to evaluate the programming changes needed to support the new billing structure. Staff has been reviewing options for billing cycles and configuring the billing system to accommodate monthly fixed charges while maintaining the bi-monthly consumptive billing. Of course, like I said, we've been coordinating with finance, customer service, IT, operations, and external relations to identify the workflows that will ensure that everyone understands their role during implementation. And we've started identifying customer education needs. Updated billing format has been prepared. A new bill inserts, website updates, FAQs are going to be developed, and communication materials that will help ensure that our customers understand these changes before we actually go through the implementation process. Staff is evaluating impacts to staff current work duties, payment processing costs, customer payment options, policy and procedures, updates that will need to happen in order for us to finish this process. So for instance, there are many policies that we have that reference a bi-monthly billing. We're changing that. So we need to make sure that all those associated policies are updated as well. So we'll be bringing those to the board as we identify them and update them. The project timeline. So attachment A outlines the overall implementation schedule. Throughout July and August, we're focused primarily on planning, system designs, and software configurations. September and October are dedicated to testing, accounting validation, and development of new procedures. And then November will focus on the customer outreach, staff training, final testing, and implementation readiness. We're currently targeted to begin transition in November. We're looking at a couple of different schedules to how to work out, the actual billing. I think we've landed on keeping the two cycles separate. So 1 month, one group will get their bill for just the base rate, and the other group will get their bill for the base rate and water consumption, and then it will flip-flop month over month. So I think that's kind of where we've landed as far as the scheduling goes. I can speak more to that, or I'm sure Michael has insight into that as well. We were just talking about the other day, and I pretty much have. That's pretty much all I have for today's update. We can answer any questions you might have. I've got Kelly here, Monica's here. They're most important members of our team. No, everyone's important, but they're working really hard right now. So
that schedule was great. I appreciate the plan and the timeline. Thank you. I would like to maybe as you develop these tools, sort of you could maybe at a future meeting you could walk us through, okay, customer J.
yes,
Here's what it's going to look like. You
Okay.
live in Rancho. Here's what bill's going to come in January, February. And this is what it's going to look like. So we could start visualizing because I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
Makes
Yes.
sense. I think it would be helpful to sort of walk
absolutely.
through, and that way we'll have a better idea what Kelly's facing, what Monica's
Yes.
facing, what you've got. I'd like to see that.
Funny that you say that because we're working up a new mock bill, which looks amazing. I think it's going to do a really good job of showing the customers exactly what they're paying for, whether it be water base, sewer base, and it really clearly shows what these bills contain. And I'm really excited. The formatting looks amazing. Kelly did an amazing job on it. And so we're in the process of finding out what the cost will be in order to have a customized bill, which is something we haven't done. We've been using just a Tyler format. And I don't know, Dylan came in. Dylan knows a lot about that too. So, you know, we'll definitely be able to show the customer what they're going to be getting.
And show us before we get to
Absolutely.
implementation. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, this is what we meant.
This is why we wanted to start these updates. So you can see we're pedal to the metal. We've already had 4 meetings of our committee, and every week we're meeting on Thursday. If you drop by, if you'd like to see us in action, and the team is doing amazing work. Yeah, sure.
staff
9:30.
Doing a great job of
9:30 in the training room. Come on by.
Staff's doing a great job of running with this. And I think part of what we're coming up against, both with this discussion and the previous discussion with reserves, and then we'll get into some more of it tomorrow when we talk more about delinquencies in particular. We're coming across a lot of policy changes that we're going to have to make to implement these things. But it's also, I think, an opportunity to look at, old policies overall in general. I think, our late notice policy is one that we've identified that we know needs to be changed. But a lot of, like with the reserves, a lot of policy will have to change here as well. And 2 things to highlight that maybe we should just plan on bringing back to Finance Committee. One is one of the implications of doing this means that for folks that pay through Tyler, through an ACH, online check pay, basically, that's a per transaction charge that we add to that $2 charge. I think Tyler, initially, when we first got Tyler, it passed through. Tyler was charging us $2, so we passed that on to the customer. Tyler's since increased that, is it $3.25 now? And we still only charge the $2 to our customers. It's been a source of frustration for customers because they are always asking for a free way to make an online payment. And we charge the $2 transaction fee for ACH, and then the credit card surcharge is separate. If you use a credit card, the surcharge is higher than that. But one of the consequences of this is customers are now going to get 12 bills a year instead of 6. And so even if they are using that ACH function, it doubles their cost because it's a per transaction cost. And while it's only a $2 charge, it's not huge. One of the things we want to do as we go through this is really make a big push to encourage all customers to go paperless. And so we can reduce because it's also going to increase our postage costs and printing costs. So the more we can get customers to go paperless and to pay online, the better. And so just something to consider, whether we reduce that to $1 so it doesn't increase the transaction cost for customers on an annual basis, but we still recover some of it, or we get rid of that fee altogether. Because by doing this, we're going to double that cost for customers to use online check pay.
ACH counts as ACH is paperless, right?
Yeah, well, it could be.
Why does Tyler have the right to charge our people $3 for money that they're never going to touch?
No,
Tyler
charges us a per
transactions.
transaction fee just for the online bill pay platform. It has nothing to do with printing. Billing is separate.
In
So
our
they-
contract, they get.
Yeah. That's the per transaction fee.
Per transaction
for them to
charge,
provide that billing platform.
regardless of how they pay. It's still the $3.25 charge. It's my understanding.
So that's built into, that's part of the way that Tyler, charges for its services.
Like if we are collecting money faster and cleaner and more consistently, those are the kind of costs. I think your point is maybe we should reduce the costs so we get more participation. Because at 1%, what we send to the county, we're sending them $80,000-$90,000 a year. If we cut that down, that's right off that sum.
And that's one of the things we've been talking about. We've been getting a lot of feedback from the customers on our convenience fee, the 3.9%. If we can show a way to pay that's free If, let's say, for example, they enroll in auto pay and paperless billing, and we can provide you with a free way to pay, seems pretty attractive to me. We would be saving costs on printing and postage, and then we still have that processing cost through Tyler, but we're already paying that anyway. So it's not fully offset. So there's more digging we need to do. We want to do some examples of what's the cost depending on how each customer pays, and what's the cost to the district, what's the cost to the customer. So that's what
you're proposing seems like it would make, I'd like to see the numbers, but it makes sense.
That's one of the implications
Great
here, though,
job.
that we want to make sure we're thinking through everything and then we bring back the smartest policy recommendations before implementation.
Let's always remember that it's just a policy, like it's not canon law. We could circle back and change it if it's not right.
Kelly, could you? I'm slow on the uptake here, but can you explain why there's an impediment to doing a monthly billing for water consumption? My thought was.
There's a couple of things. So one is just the labor, both in the office and operations staff doing for our meter reads. It's still a process that takes time to go through and make sure all the meter reads are correct. And then there's always some that are questionable or not correct. We know, and so it goes out to the field staff to do rereads and verify. So there's still a process there in terms of truing up those meter reads. That's one issue that we hope will get easier over time. The other issue is it raises some Prop 218 challenges. And so if we want to make any changes to the consumptive tiers and how we bill for consumption, we should wait until we incorporate that into the next rate study. With this proposal, one of the reasons, I think this works without 218 implications, but if we change the consumptive tiers, I think that's going to be a problem. So that's something we could look at, when the next rate study will be, gosh, I guess
Starting
now that
here at
it's
the
July,
start.
we can say next fiscal year. So that'll be in next fiscal year's budget to go through that process again. So if we want to make consumptive billing monthly also, I think that would be the time to do it. And hopefully by then we'll have smoothed out the billing process even more, because our team has gotten a lot better at that and improved the process in a lot of different ways, but there's still some room for improvement.
Well, I remember pretty vividly how the board was maybe naive to accept the concept that the meter readers wouldn't have to go out and do their meter reading and drive around the county, various parts of the county twice a month, that it would all be electronically managed. And oh boy, all it's going to cost us $5 million to accomplish that. And it's just kind of frustrating to understand. I never knew that Mueller has in their contract that they can be wrong, 3.5% per month or something, that they have that amount of error factor.
1%?
Yeah,
I think it's 99%. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what the number is.
there
but,
is some percentage that's allowable. I'm not sure what it is.
But it is also still a fraction. We used to have 2 full-time meter readers that's all they did every day. And so we're now down to, the distribution crews will handle it over a couple of days every month, but it's a fraction of what we were spending on meter reading previously.
Okay, so what you said about the 218 implications is our rate, tier rates are based upon consumption over a 2-month period. Is that
Right?
Is that how we get the tiers established?
That is
Yes.
correct.
It seems like to me that the solution to that was to be just mathematical. I mean, you whatever you're reading monthly is going to be equal to what you're going to read in 2 months. I mean, if you add 2 months together, it's going to equal what we're going to get after 2 months. I don't know. Is it clear to you why we can't do it monthly?
It's
But I
just,
do understand that we can't, my understanding is that there's things that change. We need to verify, trust, check things, double check them. Some of these work and some of them don't work on a regular basis. You do. That's why the water consumption bill will follow in the next month, if I understand correctly, right? So you're gonna get your $1 for your water-based service, and you might do $1 or $2 for consumptive. And so the first bill that go out will not have consumptive. The second bill will have consumptive with base water. Am I
So-
reading that correctly?
you'll get a base, you'll pay
Both
for the
months.
base rate monthly. Right now, we have the consumption, well, base rate and consumption is bi-monthly. The proposal is to keep the tiers the same for consumption. So we're not creating any 218 issues and we're not changing anything from an operational perspective when it comes to consumptive meter reading. So the customers will still get billed for consumption every other month in the same months that they're getting billed for consumption now. The only difference is they'll get a base rate bill in the month in between. So they won't get that huge bi-monthly bill. The base or the consumptive portion is, from our revenue perspective, it's roughly 25% of the water revenue. It doesn't work out that way for every customer. It depends on, their own water usage, but it should be, they'll notice an increase in that month they get billed for consumption, but it won't be huge the way the two base rates is in 1 month. And I think it has the added benefit of, hopefully really highlighting for our customers just how much water they're using, really seeing what the consumptive charge is. Because they'll see what their base rate is with no consumption. And then the next month they'll see what they're spending based on their own consumption. And so there might be a benefit there of them recognizing, well, hey, that's the part I can control. And maybe there's some water conservation benefit there.
Well, I am going to predict that, some of these, like particularly a commercial customer who is going to get what might seem like a fairly low bill 1 month, but the bill he gets in the second month or the alternate month is going to be twice as much as the bill that he gets when there's no consumption component. Can we do some what if presentation about how that's going to potentially affect customers and how much confusion it might in and of itself produce? I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking at it clearly, but just
No, I think these are great questions. This is why we want to, I think this should be a standing agenda item until this happens, just so that we can fully vet this. So we're not surprised by anything when it comes to implementation. So I'm glad you raised the question. I think it's, they're used to the every other month big bill. This creates the monthly bill, but still a larger, bill every other month. So, I don't know, customer education, I suppose, is probably the answer to that, outreach and education. But I think you're right that there'll be some folks that are confused or frustrated by it.
And I think we had talked about this the other day. We were talking about what does the schedule look like and how confusing it could potentially be for staff here in the office. And then I kind of had to step back because I was translating it to the customers. But really, from a customer perspective, not a lot changes, right? I'm just a water customer. So I'm used to every other month getting my full bill. Now I'm just going to get that consumption and base for 1 month and then the base for the next month. And it'll just flatten it out for me. Once you start thinking about, what happens to the other cycle and how does that work and all those things, then it really starts getting confusing. But like Kelly, he's on the other cycle. So I'm going to be getting my base and consumption that month. He's just going to get his base. When you think of it like, okay, that all makes sense. So I think we can explain it and we can do a lot of customer education, but actually looking at what their scenario is for that one customer will be critical in messaging moving forward.
I think if we really wanted to do this so that we're only making one change at one time, and we're doing it as, as clean as possible. I think the way to do that would be to incorporate this into the next rate change. But that pushes the timeline back, a fair amount, but it would give us the opportunity to do monthly base rate and monthly consumption all at one time.
Have this in place. It's a ladder lift after the 218 hearings. We want to change up. So I think you're right.
But it doesn't seem like it's a big ask to just have a couple of redacted bills, take the names off and bring in a half a dozen of them just to show us, for instance, this is the way it's going to work out for your customers. And
We can
if it
absolutely do
truly
that.
isn't a big deal, then we can have 5 votes to say, let's go with it. So,
There are 5 votes to get going. So
yeah.
We're going.
Okay.
No, but the other thing is, we're not a unique entity in the world. With a couple of calls to or maybe a posting on the special districts site that what are other districts doing? I mean, this isn't the first time that this has come up. How are they handling it? So I've learned a long time ago that if something already exists out there, there's no sense in spending time and energy trying to invent a different way. Works out sometimes, but not always. Okay, well, have you seen my soapbox? that I'm
No,
standing on.
careful.
Okay,
We share a box.
1 foot on each side. Let's see. Does that conclude your explanation?
That concludes my report, sir.
Okay. Does our general manager have any comments?
No comments. I'll be seeing the full board tomorrow. Look forward to it.
Okay, any director comments, future agenda items?
See you all tomorrow.
All right, with that, I'd like to announce that our next committee meeting will be on Tuesday, August 18th at 1 p.m. So, with that, where's the gavel? This meeting is adjourned.